Hello and welcome to Talk NYCFC. And today it's going to be a little bit of a different video. We're going to be discussing my predictions for the upcoming 2022 MLS season, the regular season predictions, and I will also give my MLS Cup winner, my MLS Cup final prediction, and I will also give my prediction for the MVP and all the awards, Golden Boot, and stuff like that. So, I just want to go out and clarify that these are all my opinions. I know that people will have different predictions and different opinions, and that's completely fine. I just ask that you just respect my opinions, and if your team is a little bit too low, uh, just don't get mad at me. This is all my predictions and all my opinions. So, without further ado, let's hop right into the predictions. Do drop a like on this video if you do like it. Subscribe for more, and I will bring you guys the review for the second leg of the Champions League later this week. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start in the Eastern Conference. So we're gonna go from the bottom to top, and you can see all. I listed all the teams in the positions I think they'll finish in. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes in each conference just talking about a little bit of every team and why I put them there. So from 14th place, I got FC Cincinnati. You know, just poor old Cincy, man. You know, they got so much hype coming into the league back in 2019, and they've just been absolutely atrocious. From top to bottom in the last 3 years. They finished bottom of the league in the last 3 years, and unfortunately, I think they're gonna go ahead and do it again. They're gonna go ahead and finish bottom of the East. They're gonna go ahead and finish bottom of the entire league, and they're gonna have the second overall pick in the MLS Super Draft next year. Um, the only reason why first is not Cincinnati is because St. Louis is coming in next season. So, unfortunately for Cincinnati, they've tried to improve. They've gotten a couple of pieces from the Philadelphia Union. They want to build themselves like Philadelphia Union have built themselves in the past few years, and if they follow the example, they could potentially be gunning for at least a playoff spot, at least a wild card spot, which I know all Cincinnati fans would love to have. But unfortunately for any of you Cincinnati fans, I'm sorry. I just can't back your team anymore. So I predicted them 14th last year, and I'm gonna go ahead and predict them 14th again. Sorry, Cincinnati fans. It's gonna be another rough season for you guys. So in 13th place above Cincinnati, I got expansion team Charlotte FC. Their manager says they're screwed. So first year in MLS, expansion teams don't really do well in MLS unless you're Atlanta, LAFC, or Nashville. Yeah, I just don't see Charlotte really being somebody like an Atlanta or an LAFC in their first season. I think they're gonna have to go through a lot of growing pains. Um, I know that their home opener has sold a lot of tickets. 70,000 plus is going to be at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. So I think this team won't do really well. I think they'll do slightly better than Austin. But, you know, but when your manager says you're screwed, uh, what positives can you really take from that? So 13th for Charlotte seems right. And 12th, I got Chicago Fire. They have made some great signings. Shaqiri is the biggest one out of all of them, but Chicago just can't get anything right. They haven't had a playoff appearance since 2017. That was the last time they actually had a really good season, and other than that, they just finished below the red line. And I just don't see Chicago having a good season at all, unfortunately for the Fire. In 11th place, I got the New Jersey Red Bulls. Let's be honest. I'm an NYCFC fan. It's a little bit biased, but you know what? Their club is finished. Their club is finished. When Red Bull fans bring up the 7-0, that happened about 6 years ago. That's how you know their club is finished. The only thing they have over us is a stadium. That's about it. That's about it. They've won a couple of supporter shields, but but they just can't get it done in the playoffs. And you know what? I don't really care about this shitty team. I honestly don't. I hope they don't they never win an MLS Cup. So they've had 12 they have 12 seasons in a row of making the playoffs. They just barely got in last season. They were lucky to get in, and I don't think they're gonna get in this year. I think 11th place. I don't even think they're even a top 10 team in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, they made some moves here and there, but I don't. But it's just not enough. It's just not enough for me. So I think 11th place is where they'll finish, and those 12 season streak of them making the playoffs will end in 2022. Going into 10th spot, I got Orlando City. They've had Nani for the last 3 years. He's been a great signing for them. He's been the top goal scorer and like top contributor for them in the past 2 seasons. But they've also lost Dale Dike. They've also lost Chris Mueller. So I just don't think this team is good enough to make the playoffs this year. Unfortunately for Orlando fans, I hope they did enjoy their 2 seasons of them making the playoffs. But I don't think this team is strong enough. I know they made some signings. I know they've signed a Uruguayan international. I forgot his name, but I know they made some good signings here and there. But I just don't see it coming all together this season. In ninth place, I got Miami. They finally have a pink kit for once, thank God. They've made some good signings here and there. I think they'll improve a little bit. Phil Neville is still at the helm. I do believe they'll improve a little bit, but I just don't see Miami making the playoffs this year. I think it's a little bit of a too tall task for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do sneak into the playoffs this season, Miami. But I think what they're trying to build down there is special, and they just signed DeAndre Yedlin, so that's a worthy piece of business worth noting of. In eighth place, I got Montreal. They've had a great season last year. Unsurprisingly, they were pushing for the playoffs. They just fell short. They lost 2-0 to Orlando in the final game of the season to just miss out on the playoffs. Wilfred Nancy is a fantastic head coach. He was a youth head coach in the Montreal system for a while, and everybody thinking Thierry Henry leaving the CF Montreal, no longer the Montreal Impact, was going to be a disaster for them. Thierry Henry is not that good of a manager, so I think Wilfred Nancy coming in at the helm for Montreal was fantastic, a great move for them. But I do believe, unfortunately, they'll just miss out on the playoffs this season. In seventh place, taking the final playoff spot, I got the Columbus Crew. Caleb Porter, every time he wins an MLS Cup, the next season, his team just takes a nosedive. A lot of injuries for them last season, unfortunately for Columbus. They did open up a brand new, beautiful stadium in downtown Columbus, Lower.com Field. So they still have Zelarayan. They still have Jaizy Zardes. They still have the core that won MLS Cup in 2020. So I do believe that they'll sneak into the playoffs. They'll just edge up Montreal and Miami for that final playoff spot this season in the Eastern Conference. In sixth place, I got DC United. Hernan Losada came in and did a great job with DC United. They became from one of the most boring teams to watch to one of the most entertaining teams to watch in MLS. He had them playing great football down the stretch. Unfortunately, just missed out on the playoffs last season. But I do have them making the playoffs in sixth place this season, despite losing players like Paul Arriola and Kevin Paredes. They still have most of the team to compete. So I do believe sixth place is just right for them. I know a lot of people had them lower, but I'm a big believer in Hernan Losada. I think he can do big things with this team. In fifth place, I got Toronto FC. Yes, I know some of my Toronto fans, Mike from SOP and Ryan Anderson. I know that they've had them winning MLS Cup. I know they've had them higher up in the Eastern Conference standings. Yes, they will bring in Lorenzo Insigne down the stretch. in the summer as a free agent, but I just don't think Toronto, with the hype they have right now, I just don't think they're that good of a team just yet. I do believe next season and a couple of seasons after that, we should definitely look out for Toronto as a heavyweight in the Eastern Conference. But I just think this year it's a little bit too early. Yes, they have a new head coach in Bob Bradley. This season will be much better compared to last season. Last season was just an absolute clusterfuck for Toronto FC. But then the other Canadian teams, Vancouver and Montreal, having to play in the United States for a third of a season. I don't think they'll have to deal with that anymore. So fifth place seems about right for Toronto FC. In fourth place, I've got the New England Revolution. They've lost players like Tajon Buchanan. They're going to lose Matt Turner in the summer to Arsenal, as he's already agreed to move in the summer. So I do believe New England, after their point season campaign, their record, setting the MLS record with 73 points, I do believe they will have a step. They won't be as good as they were last season. They're going to hit a step down. Yes, they still have Bruce Arena. They did bring in Gonzalez and Josie Altidore, two washed USMNT players, two players that were on the pitch in Trinidad and Tobago back in 2017 when the U.S. failed to qualify for the World Cup. But I do believe they'll do just enough to have at least one playoff game in the playoffs this season. In third place, I got Philadelphia Union. Fantastic team for them. Some people even have them as high as finishing first. Some people have them winning the Shield. I do believe they're a good team. I just don't think they're going to win the Shield. I know a lot of Philly fans are going to be angry about that one. Some of them are still quite salty about the playoff loss, which we won't talk about. So I think third place is good for them. In second place, I got my team, NYCFC, the reigning MLS Cup champions. I do believe that this team will do much better than last season. Last season, they had a little bit of a stretch where they couldn't score a goal in a month. They really did struggle down the stretch, but when it came to it, Ronnie Dyla had this team fired up, playing playoff football ever since October, and that just made the difference. And they went all the way and won MLS Cup last season. So I do believe second place in the Eastern Conference is accurate for them. And in first place, I got my Supporter Shield winners, Atlanta United, under Gonzalo Pineda. This team was much better under Gonzalo Pineda than Gabriel Hines. Gabriel Hines just absolutely abused the players in training, didn't even let them drink water in training. Thank God he's fired. He just seems like an asshole of a person. Even Jim Curtin said it himself in a press conference after the Champions League match last season. So I do believe Gonzalo Pineda is a great manager, and I do believe that Atlanta United will be back to the Atlanta United of old this season. And I've got them in first place in the Eastern Conference, and I've got them winning the whole Shield this season. All right, so now moving over to the Western Conference. Same thing, just, bottom to top. So 14th, I got Houston. Just a sad franchise, really. Have a fantastic, beautiful downtown stadium. Just can't fill it up whatsoever. It's a bunch of empty seats. They just like they're like the Chicago Fire of the Western Conference. They haven't had a playoff appearance since 2017. That was the last time they were actually good. And just quite sad to see a once historic franchise, from relocating to San Jose to Houston in their first two seasons in Houston, winning 2 MLS Cups, just to becoming a sad mess of a franchise. Unfortunately for Houston, I got them finishing bottom of the West again. 13th place, I've got San Jose. Again, like Houston, you could basically just copy and paste the same thing. Their owners are quite cheap. Matias Almeida, he's tried to bring in players from Chivas, players he worked with down in Mexico, and it just hasn't worked out for him. This time they're not going to have Wondolowski as he retired last season. once an historic franchise, just just going downhill. Still in an MLS 1.0 mentality. It's quite sad to see. Um, and I know some people say San Jose is the smallest club in MLS, and you know what? They act like it. Um, yeah, I'm sorry, San Jose fans. The 13th place. In 12th place, I got RSL. Yes, they did have an incredible postseason run last year, knocking out both Seattle and Kansas City on their way to the Western Conference Final, where they met their match in the Portland Timbers. Um, so they just sneaked into the playoffs because LA Galaxy slipped up, and they managed to clutch up and beat Kansas City 1-0 in their final regular season game. Um, but I just don't think this team is good enough. They haven't really strengthened, haven't really shown much in the off season to really strengthen. They do still have David Ochoa in net, um, but that's about it. They lost Albert Rusnak to the Seattle Sounders. Um, that's a big blow for them. So I just don't see RSL replicating what they did last season. 12th place is where I see them finishing. At 11th place, I got FC Dallas. Yes, they did have the record trade for Paul Arriola to bring him over from DC United. They lost Ricardo Pepi, which is a massive piece of their of why they were actually somewhat good and could actually score goals. Um, yes, they did. They still have Jesus Ferreira. He just signed a DP contract with Dallas, but he's no Ricardo Pepi. He's Everybody knows that he's no Ricardo Pepi. Um, Again, just Dallas. They just haven't been as good as they once were back in 2016 when they won the Shield. Um, they last made the playoffs in 2019. They haven't had a home playoff game since 2018. I just don't see Dallas doing that well this season. Uh, in 10th place, I got Austin. Um, Coming into their second year, their sophomore season in MLS. Um, Fantastic fans, great stadium. They had fantastic turnouts last year. I'm not sure if they, I'm not sure if they be able to sustain that if they can't put the ball in the net. They had the fewest goals in the Western Conference last year. I believe they had the worst offense in the league last year, scoring the least amount of goals in the league. And if they just can't put the ball in the back of the net, they're just not going to witness the success, and they're going to see the fans slowly start leaving. They're going to see fan interest slowly deteriorate, and they'll just end up like Houston and Dallas, their Texas counterparts, unfortunately. In ninth place, I got Minnesota. They're just in a mess right now. They started in 2020. They made the conference final. They were literally 15 minutes away from making MLS Cup, and unfortunately, Seattle scored 3 goals in the last 15 minutes of the Western Conference final to come back and win the Western Conference and represent the West in MLS Cup. So last year, high expectations on them. Unfortunately, they couldn't live up to those expectations. They started off the season 0-4. 0-4. They dropped their opening 4 games last year, and they did manage to recover. But I do believe this will be Adrian Heath's final season at the helm in Minnesota. So they've had troubles with their players off the pitch. Unfortunately for them, I just don't see them making the playoffs. I do believe they'll compete until the final second, but I just don't see them making the playoffs this season, unfortunately for Minnesota. In 8th place, I got LAFC. They brought a newcomer of the year, Chicho Arango. He scored 14 goals in 17 games last season, with only half the year in MLS for LAFC. Really did revitalize their attack. Carlos Vela, I'm not sure what's going on with him. I'm not sure if he's 100%. I know he's had some injury problems in the past. Last season, he had his relationship with Bob Bradley kind of deteriorated a little bit. And LAFC's Bradley replacement, they brought in the USL manager from the Las Vegas Lights, who barely won any games, so I just don't see them doing well at all. If they do manage to get into the playoffs, it'll all be on Chicho Arango. And yes, I know they did bring in Ishmael Tajiri Shradi, who just recently won MLS Cup with New York City FC via a trade with Charlotte FC, but I just don't see LAFC really making the playoffs with their new manager at the helm. They needed to bring in somebody else, but I do believe if they do bring somebody else in, they'll be a much better team. But unfortunately for them, I just don't see LAFC making the playoffs this season. In seventh place, I got Vancouver Whitecaps. They had a fantastic run of form down the stretch of the regular season last year to get into sixth place in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they couldn't do anything in the playoffs. They went out and lost to Kansas City in the first round. But I do believe they'll just sneak into the playoffs. I do believe they'll just beat LAFC in Minnesota to get into the playoff spots. I see them taking the final playoff spot in the Western Conference. Yeah, so I do believe their new manager. I forgot their name. I forgot his name. Somebody let me know in the comment section below. But I do believe that having their interim manager and naming them head coach permanently was a fantastic move for Vancouver. He really had this team fired up, and it got them into the playoffs. Nobody really saw Vancouver making the playoffs last season. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and back them here, and I'm going to say they make the playoffs this season. In sixth place, I got the LA Galaxy. They were literally every single week in MLS last year, from weeks 1 to 34, before the final whistle, they were in a playoff spot until RSL scored in Kansas City, and they couldn't beat Minnesota at home, and they dropped to 8th place in the playoffs. That's the second time in the last 4 years that they've missed out on the playoffs to RSL just because they couldn't win their final home game of the regular season. But I do believe that Greg Vanney will have this team playing much better, and I do believe that they'll get into the playoffs this season. I just don't see them doing anything in the playoffs, but I do believe it will be a much better season for the LA Galaxy coming up. In fifth place, I got Colorado. I know my friend Isaiah or Rapid Waters, he's going to be watching this. They just play like absolute garbage in the Champions League against Comunicaciones. They lost on a last-minute set-piece golazo scored by Espino in Guatemala. They now trail that series 1-0 as they will have the second leg yet to play in Colorado. Again, Stan Kroenke, he just doesn't care about the Rapids. He doesn't care about Arsenal. His football team, the LA Rams, just won a Super Bowl. He invested so much money into building SoFi Stadium. He invested so much money into that Rams team trying to build a winner, and it paid off for him. And I just don't think he just doesn't care about his football teams in Arsenal and Colorado. He just doesn't care about them. He cares more about his NFL franchise, and he screwed over St. Louis out of an NFL team. So I just don't. In Colorado, they really haven't spent a lot. They got Max, but that's really about it. They're going to lose Austin Trusty to Arsenal. They need a DP number 9. If they get a DP striker, this team could compete because Robin Fraser is a fantastic manager, and he was robbed of Coach of the Year last year to Bruce Arena. He was absolutely robbed. He deserves it, and I don't think Robin Fraser will be in Colorado next year. I genuinely don't think he'll be in Colorado next year. I think he's going to get a better job offer somewhere else, and Colorado, after that, they're just going to deteriorate into nothingness after that. That's just the way I see it. I do believe they'll sneak. I do believe they'll get into the playoffs, but I don't think they'll do like they did last year and get the first seed in the West. And finally, we got the top 4 in the Western Conference. I got Nashville in 4th place. They're coming over from the Eastern Conference. Their away trips are going to be really long when they go out to places like Los Angeles and Seattle. It's an unfortunate situation, but they're going to open up a brand new stadium, and they were undefeated at home last year. So I do believe they'll get into 4th place in the Western Conference. I do believe Hani Mukhtar will be the MVP. There's my MVP prediction. Hani Mukhtar in 2022. Um, he was just a phenomenal player. I would have much rather seen Mukhtar win it than Carlos Hill last season, but I do believe Mukhtar will win this year the MVP, and I think the reason why Nashville gets up so high is they're going to rely on their home form a lot. In third place, they got Kansas City. They had the opportunity to finish first with Seattle, but they just kept slipping towards the end when it mattered most, and then Colorado just took advantage. They wanted it more. Um, Kansas City, disappointment in the playoffs. They've just been disappointing in the playoffs every year ever since winning MLS Cup back in 2013. They just haven't been able to get back into the big dance. They're kind of like the Green Bay Packers of MLS in a way. That's how Danny T. Radio would describe Sporting Kansas City. And there's a lot of similarities between the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City in the way how they're always one of the best teams in the regular season, but they just can't get it done in the playoffs. It's unfortunate for Kansas City, but I got them finishing third. And second, I got Portland. They're the MLS Cup runner-up. They just came off hosting MLS Cup, unfortunately losing it to New York City FC in front of their home fans. Diego Valeri is no longer there. They do have Sebastian Blanco coming back. They did lose Steve Clark to Houston, but I believe they're going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. They're going to finish second. And in first place, I got Seattle Sounders. They've made some good moves. Most notably, Albert Rusnak coming over from Real Salt Lake. They stole RSL's DP and they added him to the roster. They already had a loaded roster. Rui Diaz is going to be back. I believe Rui Diaz is going to win the Golden Boot. That's another prediction right there. I do believe Rui Diaz will win the 2022 Golden Boot. They just have a good team all around. They have Jordan Morris coming back. They have Stefan Frey in goal. They have a good defense. They have a good midfield. They still have Ladero. They still have both Roldans. I just don't see a better team than Seattle on paper in the Western Conference. I genuinely don't see a better team than Seattle. So that's going to do it for the regular season predictions. For me, I got Mukhtar winning the MVP. I got Rui Diaz winning the Golden Boot. I got Sean Johnson winning Goalkeeper of the Year. Lorenzo Insigne will win Newcomer of the Year and Defender of the Year. I got Walker Zimmerman and Coach of the Year. I'm going to have Gonzalo Pineda winning Coach of the Year. MLS Cup predictions in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I got New York City winning the Eastern Conference. I got them representing the East in MLS Cup again. I do believe they're going to host it, and their Western Conference opponent will be Sporting Kansas City. I do believe that this is finally the year Kansas City is gonna. They're gonna. I do believe they're gonna shock a lot of people. I do believe Peter Vermees. This will be his final year in Kansas City. I am predicting that this will be his final year as Kansas City head coach. Before Greg inevitably shits the bed at the World Cup and he takes over as USMNT coach. I do believe New York City. They're just too good of a team. I genuinely don't see a team better than New York City to win MLS Cup. Yeah, I do know that there's a few teams that can challenge here and there, but I just don't see. I just cannot see another team than New York City repeating. I do believe that New York City is going to be their first repeat champion in a decade in MLS, and this time they're going to win number 2 at home at Yankee Stadium against Sporting Kansas City, and I'm going to say New York City wins MLS Cup 3-1 against Sporting Kansas City come November 2022, just before the World Cup. But anyways, that's my predictions for the 2022 MLS season. Do let me know in the comment section below your predictions. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you disagree with me. I just look forward to the new season. I look forward to New York City defending their crown with honor. And do expect a review on the NYCFC Santos de Guapolis Leg 2 coming out later this week after the second leg is played. So, yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like. If you look forward to more content, please subscribe. I know it's a long video. I know I said 5 minutes per conference, but you know what? I just couldn't. I just couldn't fit it all in 5 minutes. So I do apologize for the really long video. If you're still watching right now, I genuinely appreciate it. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure we go up in the algorithm as I try to grow the channel more and more every day. But that's gonna wrap it up. So I will see you guys later this week. Peace.